It's been a year since I wrote my note. I should have known this right from the start. Right from the start. Only hope can keep me together. Yeah. Love can mend your life, but love can break your heart. I send an SOS to the world. I send an SOS to the world. I hope that someone gets my. I hope that someone gets. I hope that someone gets my message in a bottle. I dream of rain, message in a bottle now. I dream of gardens in the desert, sending out an SOS, sending out an SOS. Come on, sending out an SOS, sending out an SOS. Oh, sending out an SOS, sending out an SOS, sending out.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Virtual Vocals, Transit at Home. My name is James Wallace, and I'm the founder and vocal percussionist for Transit Vocal Band, a contemporary a cappella group based right here in the Triangle of North Carolina. In today's video, we are going to present to you our virtual program of our educational program known as A Cappella Reinvents the Genres. And so what we'll do today is actually look at contemporary a cappella music and how you can use that particular style of music to create and express yourself across many different genres of music. All right, so what are we specifically going to talk about in today's show? Well, like I said, we're going to talk about contemporary a cappella music and define it so we know what contemporary a cappella music is. We're then going to define genre, understand what a genre is and what the word means. Once we've done that, we're going to look at a few different specific genres of music and how we can use the contemporary a cappella style to create across those genres. Among the genres, we're going to talk about our Motown, country, hip-hop, rock, and jazz. And then at the very end of all that, we're going to look at how we can take all of these different genres and the contemporary a cappella style, mix and mash and combine things in a lot of interesting ways and create one single song that has a lot of different genres in it. All right, so let's get started with talking about what is contemporary a cappella music. Well, a cappella music is simply stated music that you make only with your mouth, only with your voice. You don't have any instruments, you don't have any computers, you don't have any backing tracks, you don't have any accompaniment whatsoever. You're making your music with your mouth. In the contemporary a cappella style, we go one step further. Not only are we making our music by singing, but we're actually trying to create the sound of a full, multi-layered, sometimes really loud band. We're trying to create a full band sound using only our mouths. That's the vocal band style, and that's what we at Transit Vocal Band do. All right, so now we know what contemporary a cappella is. Let's talk about, well, what is a genre? So if you were to go to the dictionary and you looked up the word genres, what you would see is a definition of categories of artistic composition, so music or literature, that are characterized by similarities in form, style, or subject matter. So more simply put, you're talking about different types or kinds of music, art, or literature, right? Different types, different kinds that have some similarities somewhere across the board. Now, when we think about these genres and contemporary a cappella music, there are a lot of really interesting ways we can explore and a lot of different specific genres we can look at. Now, let's just start from the very beginning of this presentation where you heard that first song, and that was a song called Message in a Bottle by the band The Police. Now, this was what you heard was the studio recorded version of Transit singing and creating the band style for Message in a Bottle. And that was a good example of pop music or popular music, right? Which is a basic genre of music that we're all fairly familiar with, and generally speaking, we all more or less like, and we all like to hear it on the radio, on TV, in movies, etc. That's pop music. That's fairly standard. There are a lot of different examples of pop music at any given time. But now that we know what pop music is and we've got a little taste of how you can use a cappella for pop music, let's get into our first in-depth genre we want to talk about today, and that's the Motown genre. So Motown was started back in 1959 when a young African-American songwriter by the name of Berry Gordy created the Motown Records Corporation up in Detroit, Michigan. So Berry Gordy went on to become world famous for all of the different music and all of the different songs that he put out. But all of that got started back in 1959 in Detroit, Michigan. Now, the word Motown is a really interesting word, and it is a word that is derived from Detroit's nickname as the Motor City. And it's called the Motor City because all the different car manufacturers that are there. And so Berry Gordy brought this term Motown about as a tribute to Detroit, the Motor City, where he was producing this music. Now, some of the key characteristics of Motown that we often think about are a few things. One is that Motown really made popular female groups of singers. Before Motown, a lot of females had been famous as singers individually, but Motown put a twist on that and started putting groups of females and groups of women together. From a musical standpoint, Motown was also really interesting because it brought about the dominance of horns in the music. So you hear a lot of trumpets, you hear a lot of trombones, saxophones, a lot of brass horn instruments that are really prominent and really, frankly, quite recognizable across a lot of Motown music. Another thing from a musical standpoint that Motown brought to us was the introduction of tambourines in a lot of their music. Now, tambourines had existed, of course, before Motown, but Motown actually made them very popular in the percussion sections. And you may not realize it today, but tambourines are all over music, and the widespread use of tambourines really got started with Motown music back in the 60s and 70s. One last really interesting characteristic of Motown is what we call the call and response. We've all seen this many, many times where the band or the singer will sing one thing and have the audience respond to that initial call. So there's a back and forth between the band or the singer and the audience. And that becomes a call and response motion that really became popular in Motown music. Another interesting note about the call and response in Motown is it actually is derived from the African American gospel tradition in music. So Motown took that gospel tradition, the call and response element of gospel, and really brought that into the mainstream of music in the 1960s, 70s, and even beyond. Another really cool thing about Motown is it came to be known Hitsville, USA, right? Hitsville, USA. And it was called that because it produced so many popular songs and artists across many, many decades. There are too many Motown artists to list them all here, but some of the most popular that a lot of you may have heard of include the Supremes, the Temptations, Gladys Knight, Marvin Gaye, the Jackson 5, and my personal favorite, Stevie Wonder. Now, what we're going to do for you guys is we're going to show you a demonstration of how you can use a cappella music to create in the Motown genre or in the Motown style. I mentioned Stevie Wonder's my favorite. We're actually going to show you a demonstration of one of Stevie Wonder's songs called Uptight. And this is going to be a live recorded version of Stevie Wonder's Uptight. The song you heard at the beginning of the presentation was a studio version, which means we've produced it and put a lot of bells and whistles on it to make it sound just right. The live recording is pretty much us just singing right in the microphones, showing you how you can use contemporary a cappella music to create in this style. So here it is, live recording of Uptight by Stevie Wonder.
Ba 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 ba. Baby, everything is alright. Uptight, out of sight. Baby, everything is alright. Uptight, clean out of sight. I'm a poor man's son from across some railroad tracks. Only shirt I own is hanging on my back, but I'm the envy of every single guy. I'm the apple of my girl's eye. When we go out on the town, out stepping for a while. See, my money is low, but my shoes out of style. But it's alright, my clothes ain't new. Out of sight, because said, baby, everything is alright. Uptight, out of sight. Baby, everything is alright. Uptight, clean out of sight. Ba, 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 ba. Hero, smooth down one. I got empty pockets. I'm a poor man's son. I don't have all the things money can buy, but I never make my baby cry. And it's alright, my clothes ain't new, out of sight, because my heart is true. She said, baby, everything is alright. Outside, out of sight. She said, baby, everything is alright. Uptight, clear out of sight. Ba, 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 da, ba, 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 da, ba, 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 da, ba, ba,
da. Hey y'all. My name is Oren and I sing bass and run live sound for transit. I'd like to talk to you about two of my favorite genres, country and hip-hop. Now, at first glance, these genres might seem completely different, but in fact, they're both evolutions of rich cultural traditions of folk music. So in order to gain a better understanding of folk music, let's look at Western African folk music. So all folk music really is, to put it simply, is people in a community getting together and talking about life, the joys and the sorrows of living in a particular region. And this is often done over traditional instruments and exists all over the world, in every culture. In Western Africa, although it's a big region, we can derive some commonalities from the different folk traditions. For instance, griots. These are traveling storytellers who are often the gatekeepers of folk traditions. They would travel from place to place, telling stories and singing songs everywhere they went. Now, these songs that they would sing weren't sung in what we might consider a traditional sense. Instead, griots would focus on the words themselves and the rhythm of the words rather than the actual notes being sung. And the instrumentation reflects this too, with more drums such as djembes being used in the backing. Now, through the evils of slavery, this tradition arose in the United States as a means for enslaved people to maintain their humanity and show solidarity during the dehumanizing conditions of the time. For some, it was even a North Star to freedom. And these songs that came about from this and other traditions, proved to be more resilient than the system itself, and went on to influence nearly every type of American music, including this next type of folk music, from my neck of the woods, Appalachian folk music. Living in North Carolina, you've probably heard a form of Appalachian folk music. You've heard the wailing vocals, you've heard the tight harmonies, and you've heard the instrumentation, which includes guitars, DIY instruments like spoons and washboards, and even banjos. Now, something as quintessentially American as a banjo actually comes from the Western African folk music tradition, from an instrument called the kora, based on a gourd. Now also, out west, in the western United States, we have another folk music tradition. This came about in the mid-1800s. Now out in the plains, you have to travel a lot by covered wagon. And oftentimes these journeys will be for days, weeks, months, even years on end. And so you're constantly listening to the clip-clopping rhythm of the horse's hooves. And maybe someone on this journey has a guitar or a bass and might add in a bass line. Then maybe someone with a harmonica might start adding in some sick licks. And then maybe the diva of the wagon comes in and starts singing about how lonesome they are on the plains. Now, it might seem silly, but this is actually the basis for Western folk music, yet another American folk music tradition. And in the 1920s, a man by the name of Ralph Peer went to Bristol, Tennessee, and he wanted to record both of these forms of American folk music, Western folk music and Appalachian folk music. And in doing so, he combined the two. He combined some of the best elements of both genres into one genre that we now know as country music. So that's country music, but what about hip-hop? Well, these American folk music traditions of getting together and talking about your life, these became a real fad in the 1950s, and people started to take notice. Now, this was in cities such as New York and Chicago, bigger places. And at the time, there was a term for this. It was to rap, which at the time just meant to talk. But this rapping tradition evolved, and soon talking sessions became jam sessions, with drums, with keyboards, with guitars, with all kinds of instruments. And in the 1970s, a new term was coined for getting together and rhythmically speaking or rapping over beats, and that was hip-hop. Now, in the 1970s, late 1970s, early 1980s, we also saw the advent of drum machines. These were really expensive pieces of equipment that not a lot of people could afford. So, to make do, some people were ingenious enough to try to emulate these new drum sounds with their mouths, and in doing so, people like the human beatbox himself, Dougie Fresh, created the beatboxing or vocal percussion tradition that we as acapellians enjoy today. So I hope that you see now that these two genres, hip-hop and country, are really one and the same. They're both based off of the same elements. And to honor this, we want to show you a song that does this justice so well. This is one of the biggest songs of all time, and it combines hip-hop beats with country delivery. This is Old Town Road.
I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more.
I got the horses in the back, horse tack is attached. Hat is matte black, got the boots is black to match. Riding on a horse, you can whip your Porsche. I've been in the valley, you ain't been up off that porch. Now can't nobody tell me nothing. You can't tell me nothing. Can't nobody tell me nothing. You can't tell me nothing. Riding on a tractor, I wish it would go faster. You know I love my baby, you can go and ask her. My life is a movie, bull riding and smoothies. Cowboy hat from Gucci, Wrangler on my booty. Can't nobody tell me nothing. You can't tell me nothing. Can't nobody tell me nothing. You can't tell me nothing.
I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more.
Happy Assembly Day, everybody. My name is Adam Lee Decker, and I sing tenor in Transit Vocal Band. Up next is the awesome genre rock. Can everybody say rock? On the count of three, ready? 1, 2, 3, rock. The origins from rock began as, quote, rock and roll in the 1940s and 1950s. Rock's roots came from blues, rhythm and blues, country music, jazz, electric blues, and folk music. In the 1960s, rock took an awesome turn. Rock music evolved significantly, developing into many different subgenres, ones that we know: classic rock, folk rock, southern rock, and others just like that. The key characteristics: the instrumentation centers on electric guitar with electric bass, keys, drums, and one or more singers. normal rock. Most songs are written in 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 1, all this stuff. 4/4 time signature with traditional verse chorus format. So you'd have verses, then you'd hit the hook like they do, and then you come back to another verse, and you'd be able to sing. And usually the chorus, or the hook they like to call, is something that you guys can always remember. You'll always remember it. The common themes included romantic, love, and social, and political issues. It was often a vehicle for social and political activism. Inherited the, quote, protest song, which was traditionally with folk music. Popular artists of rock: Chuck Berry, The Beatles, Bob Dylan, Led Zeppelin, and many, many more. Up next, we are excited to present to you the studio recording of Separate Ways, a classic rock genre.
The feeling that is gone won't change your mind. If we can't go on to survive the tide, love divide.
Troubled times, caught up in confusions and pain, distant eyes, promises were made in vain, in vain, in vain. And if you must go, I wish you love. You better walk alone. Take care, my love. Miss your love. Someday love will find you. Break those chains that bind you. One night will remind you how we touched and went our separate ways. If he ever hurts you, true love won't desert you. You know I still love you, though we touched and went our separate ways. No, 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 no.
Hi, my name is April McTaggart. I'm the only female member of Transit Vocal Band, and I'm also an alto vocalist that sings solos, harmonies, and occasionally even some really high soprano notes. So I'm really excited to spend a few minutes talking to you about jazz music. Jazz got its start in African American communities in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The birthplace of jazz is considered to be right here in the United States of America in New Orleans, Louisiana. So as you can see on this map, New Orleans is located right on the Mississippi River near the Gulf of Mexico. Especially around the time that jazz was becoming popular in the United States, New Orleans was a busy port city. So lots of ships came in bringing goods and visitors to the United States from other parts of the world. Those people from various cultures and backgrounds often shared their music with each other. So let's talk about some of the key characteristics of jazz music. Jazz musicians are known for their improvisation, which is just a fancy word that means to make something up as you go along. So that's why you'll rarely hear a band play a jazz tune the same way twice. Jazz is also known for its propulsive, syncopated rhythms. So we have a few more fancy words to think about here. So rhythm just refers to the beat of the music. Having a propulsive rhythm means that the beat drives the music or it moves it forward. So it gives it a certain groove or feel. So think about how a propeller might move or propel an airplane forward. Syncopated just means off the beat. So rhythms can change or vary throughout a song based on how creative the instrumentalists want to be. Another characteristic of jazz music is that musicians purposefully play around with the pitch and timbre of different notes. So when we talk about a note's pitch, we're referring to how high or low a note sounds. When we talk about timbre, we're just referring to what differentiates two sounds of the same frequency or note. So for example, if I sang a note, it would sound very different than if I played that same note on a flute or a guitar. due to the different timbre of each instrument. And yes, your voice is an instrument, just like the flute or the guitar. So jazz music uses these distortions of pitch or timbre to express feeling or emotion. So a vocal run might sound a little bit like this. Yeah! And then bending a note might sound a little bit like this. Yeah! So quickly, let's talk about what instruments you might hear playing a typical jazz tune. You might hear a saxophone. You might hear a trumpet, and oftentimes it will be muted, which just means the trumpet player uses a mute to lower the volume or change the timbre of the trumpet sound. So if you look a little bit more closely in this picture, you'll see the trumpet player here is holding a mute in his left hand. Drums are often used in jazz music as well, though interestingly, drummers may sometimes use brushes as opposed to sticks to create a swinging rhythm that sounds a little bit like tss, 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 tss. Pianos or keyboards are frequently used in jazz music. And you might hear the instrument pictured here, which is an upright bass. So this is the instrument that's responsible for the characteristic walking bass line that you hear in a lot of jazz songs. So it might sound a little bit like. So just briefly, before we sing for you, I want to mention a few of the more popular jazz singers and musicians that you may have heard of. So Louis Armstrong was a popular jazz singer and trumpet player from the birthplace of jazz, which was where? Do you remember? That's right, it was New Orleans, Louisiana. One of his more popular songs is What a Wonderful World, which is a beautiful song. If you haven't heard it, you should listen to it. Ella Fitzgerald was also a popular female jazz vocalist known for her improvised scat singing. So that basically means she used the tone and the pitch of her voice to imitate instrument sounds and rhythms during her improvisation. We do a lot of that in a cappella music. And there are lots and lots of others, but one of my favorites is Etta James. The next song will showcase vocal runs and bent notes in the solo. You may even hear a walking bass line. So I hope you enjoy.
Wrapped up in clover. The night I looked at you, can't help fall in love with you. I found a dream that I can speak to, a dream that I
Hey everybody, it's Adam again. So my favorite portion of the show, the combining of the genres. Two things that contemporary a cappella does and does well. One is medleys, and they string a ton of songs that work well together. The other thing is a combination of genres, specifically all the genres that we learned today. A cappella music tradition to incorporate many genres into one song. So what we do is we try to take as many genres or types of music and put it into one song. So big fun thing to do at the end with your family and everybody today. How many genres can you hear? How many types of music, specific types of music, can you hear in this next coming track? I present to you Transit Vocal Band's studio performance of Sweet Dreams Are Made of These that won us some awards on Carnegie Hall. Enjoy.
Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Hold your head up, keep your head up. Hold your head up, keep your head up. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Sweet dreams are made of these. Sweet dreams are made of these. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? Disagree, disagree, disagree. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something.
All right, everybody. So how many genres did you count in that last song? Which ones did you hear? Did you happen to hear any genres we've already talked about in today's show? Did you happen to hear any genres we didn't talk about in today's show? One of the things we love most about contemporary a cappella music is the freedom it gives us to create across all these different styles of music, and then to even do something fun and interesting like throw them all together in a single song. Well, that's all the time we have today for Virtual Vocals. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation of a cappella reinvents the genres. Make sure to check us out on the web at www.transitvocalband.com, and also check us out on our social media platforms, all of which are outlined on the slide you see on the screen. Thanks again, everybody. Hope everyone stays safe, and we look forward to seeing you all again in person really soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
So we're sending love.